Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way Show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am the CEO of Leadershipity and a serial entrepreneur, been an EO member, entrepreneur organization member for over 13 years. I am an international speaker speaking in over 17 countries, delivering the goods. And I am the new author of Leading Winning Teams with Wiley Publishing. Excited about that book. Just launched August 20th. Please go and pick that up. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the major networks. Check it out. Most people know me, though, because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And so I am excited to welcome my fellow EO member, Edwin Carrion. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Trent, thank you for having me here. And to everybody listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the world you're in. And today I have a little sore throat, so mind my voice.
Okay, well, you sound good. No problems there. Hopefully you make it to the time slot here. But I think it's going to be no problem. Edwin is an absolute world beater. Born in Ecuador. He's a keto man, which I love. I've been down there. It's a gorgeous country, great people. Then a long-running stint in Miami, building out Carrion Investment Group, big developer. Went to FIU at the old Florida International, which makes sense, by the way. And now you've taken the young family down to Colombia, living down in Cali. And so today I got you from Colombia. So that's awesome, Edwin.
Yes.
How are things going, buddy?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here again. And, enjoying the time here in South America. That was one of my all-time dreams after being in the Marine Corps and living in different countries, that when I leave the Marine Corps and I live on my own, I want to live in a different country and have an experience, and also give my kids that cultural experience of living in another country, understanding that, the U.S., there's other places in life that you can live, and you're not going to have all the luxuries that you have in the United States.
Yeah, I feel like living in Miami is another country. Like, it is so international there, man. I mean, there's a lot of great culture, right? There's a lot of things happening, which is very cool. And you drive like 12 miles north, and Fort Lauderdale is like a suburb of like America, right? It's so weird. And so I love that dynamic, and I love the idea that showing that world to your children, and it has gotten a lot smaller. You agree with that?
Yes, definitely. The moment you start doing that, it makes their world smaller, because now they're open to more things. And it's not like a regular kid that never leaves their city or their town, that when you ask them, where do you want to go on vacation? They don't have that big mindset. Like when you ask my kids, where do you want to go on vacation? It's like, oh, I want to go to Rome. I want to go to Dubai. Like they have like this world travel aspirations in their mind, because they already been to so many different countries, that's what they look for, compared to other kids that they never live, the small towns. So when they grow up, they have more opportunities because of that.
Yeah, and one of the things I love right now, by the way, and I want to get into this Marine Corps thing, man, but I love what you just said, because I tell a lot of Americans who complain, who whine about how things are going and it needs to adjust. And I'm not saying things don't need to change. I think that's probably pretty good. I think they always need to change. But I tell a lot of people, like, hey, you want to know how it is, you better thicken up your passport and go find out, because you go into a lot of cultures, there are a lot of luxuries and resources we have here in the States that a lot of folks just take advantage of and don't even recognize because they've never gone outside. Edwin, do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. No, most definitely. And even with the basic necessities such as electricity, water, those are like the key ones that we take for granted in the United States.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think people, I tell a lot of people that we don't have any needs in the United States anymore. We just have wants. Like, your basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter is met for 99.9% of Americans, right?
Yes.
And so, and everyone goes, hey, man, I'm not making enough money. Well, just to be clear, like, the average money here in America is like the top 7% worldwide. Like, other people don't make that. And I understand geo arbitrage and currency. Sorry about that. You certainly understand that from growing up in keto till you're 12 years old. You've got a U.S. currency that's always been in place. They use the U.S. dollar in Ecuador. That's kind of a unique thing about Ecuador. I've loved my time in Ecuador when I visited, and been on a couple of missions there, and it's a fabulous country. And there are a lot of expats. A lot of Americans go in there Why are they going? Are they choosing the climate? Are they choosing the U.S. dollar, or they're choosing the cost of living? What's everybody coming for?
I'll tell you, like from my experience, right? Like now that I'm in Colombia, and I think as Americans, we move to another country, migrate, we become expats for different reasons. Number one is quality of life.
Yeah,
Um, in South America, the quality of life, people are more like friendly, more family oriented. So I think that's the number one thing. We always make a joke with my wife that if we want to walk our dogs, it takes us an hour just to walk our dogs, because the moment that we leave our door, like 2 minutes later, we're talking to the neighbor next door, we're drinking coffee with them, and it's 20 minutes later. Then we say bye to them, and then we walk maybe another few steps, and now we've got the other neighbor doing the same thing over and over again. So it takes us a long time to walk the dogs just because of that. So I think number one is because uh, the people, you get family, more friendly oriented, family oriented. Number two, I think, is the quality of life. You get more for your bucks, especially if you're making US dollars. And in the United States, I had one maid. Here, I have three maids for the same price. So
yeah,
you get more for your buck because of that. You get to live at a higher, at a different level of status or level, and you get to enjoy as much. You get to enjoy life a little bit more because you're not so worried about working so much like in the United States, versus here you get to relax more and just really enjoy the quality of life. And I think that's the main reason. And the last one is food. The food, to me, I think it's a lot better. They still have so much organic food in South America, in Latin countries, because they're not so full of pesticides and all these other ingredients that they put in the United States.
yeah. No, I think those are great points. I think Tim Ferriss really hit this for me in the 4 Hour Work Week back. I don't know when that book came out, but I was, in it right at the
Great book.
beginning. Yeah, and just understanding, like, and he talks about that, like, the quality of life I'm getting, and what I'm staying for in South America for, for $1,500 or $800 a month. I've got a chef. I've got, care for my facility. I've got a lovely home with a view, and I've got all the amenities I need. And pre-pandemic, I mean, you think about now, we are so remote, so connected. Like,
Yes.
it's not challenging to work wherever. And as you may know, and I know you do it too, Edwin. We go on shows, we go on, media all over the world. I do it from hotel rooms, from anywhere in
Yes.
the world with the tech, right? It's all here. So
Yep.
it's amazing opportunity. How have I'm going to come back to the Marine thing. How have your wife? Is your wife American? Where is she from? How is she adapted to, like, hey, we're going to be a little bit of global world setters here, a little globe trotting, and experience some different cultures.
Yeah. Well, she was born in Miami, raised in North Carolina, Tallahassee. So she's American, completely American, but her parents are Colombian. That's one of the reasons we're in Colombia. Her mom and
Makes
her
sense.
dad, they're from Colombia.
Yep.
But again, she lived her whole life in the United States, and she adapted very well. Like, she loves it here. We all love it here. The only
Yeah.
thing that I'll say I miss from Miami and the United States is, number one, my yacht, because I love to be on the water all the time, and that's my one thing. And number two, we miss the church that we used to go to. Besides that, those are the only things that I miss. And my kids, they miss their church, because we really, like the transition from English to Spanish has been tough. Even though I speak Spanish and my kids speak Spanish, like, we're used to certain standards. So we used to go into church and listening to everything in English. Now everything's in Spanish, so it's much different, and we have to learn, like, what is Matthew in Spanish and all these things. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit hard for us on that side.
Yeah, but you got some happy grandparents, abuelo and abuelas. They're like,
Yeah.
they are probably thrilled that those two little girls are close and they get to see them more often. So, and like you said, we're moving part for quality of life, and family's part of that thing. And
Yes.
you and I both know, raising young families, that, man, when you got little kids, it's hard to get away. Like,
It
Mama and
is.
I need some time, and we need to get away a little bit. And, with the speed of the US and not having family close, you're trusting a babysitter, fine, but, like, man, that's gone into a whole nother level of cost, by the way, in the US, man. Like,
Oh
that's like
yeah.
an hour now, right? Like, I mean, my sister worked, I don't know, for like 250 an hour when she was a kid. Like, I'm like, going, man, they just paid my daughter like $25 an hour to do some work at 17. I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe you should quit your day job and do this thing full time.
Yeah.
Like, so okay, so you're immigrated into the U.S., which is awesome, and I love that. Like, we are a country of immigration, and you come to Miami, and you're gonna make a way. And I'm sure your family was like, "Hey, man, our 12-year-old Edwin's gonna learn some things. We're gonna get it maybe better than he had it in Ecuador. I don't know, but what do you think their intent? And then, yeah, give me their intent. What do you think there?
I'll tell you from my mom, because I was raised by a single mother,
Okay,
and her intent was always to give us a better lifestyle.
yeah,
And coming here as a single mother, raising two kids of her own, she started working as a maid at the beginning to really make ends meet. And then she learned the language. She got a license and became an insurance agent. She opened up her own company, and that's how she was able to maintain us and give us the best that she can give us. And then from there on, I had the need of, because of where the places that she put me at. She worked hard to put me in a private school, and I'm surrounded by all these little rich kids. I'm like, oh my God, there's this guy, 16 years old, driving a BMW, driving a Corvette. Like, I want that for me, but I know I can't have it. So that became like a need for me, like a really deep down need that I need to become successful. And I think that's when it really started that, success, it's part of my journey, is not something, it's never going to happen, that I need to become successful because of what I was surrounded with and the hard work that my mom did and all the effort and everything that she did to bring us to that country to be able to have a better life.
yeah. It's a great combination, right? And it probably didn't feel great at that time, right? You're the guy who's doesn't have what they have, and they've got money, they've got means, they've got resources, fellow students, and you're like going, dang, man. I wish my dad had a $1 million company, and so as you think through that, like, you're developing now as a teenager, but it's also shaping you and driving you. Why
Yes.
the Marine Corps?
Why the Marine Corps? Two reasons. Number one, I always wanted to go into the military. I always wanted to, wear that uniform, and, what better place to do it in the United States. But number two, during that time from 18, 19 years old, I started hanging around with the wrong crowd, and I got arrested. And the moment I got arrested, I'm like, I need to change my life completely. So I went into the military. I wanted to go into the Air Force because I wanted to fly jets and be a pilot. And I didn't get accepted into the Air Force Academy because of my grades. I thought I wasn't smart enough when I was younger. And sure enough, I'm like, if I can't go to the Air Force, I'm going to go to the best of the best. And that's why I went to the Marine Corps. So
That's
everybody
awesome.
knows that's the best of the best.
Semper Fi. So I love this. And what most people don't know about you, Edwin, this just wasn't a blush with the Air Force. This is something you had a passion for in flying.
Yeah.
In fact, what most people don't know about you is you bought a plane before you could fly, because you're like, hey, I'm going to be a pilot, and this is going to be my driver. I'm going to get the plane, and then I'll make sure I get my license so I can play with the toy.
Yes, yes, I did that, and sure enough, the moment I was able to buy the plane, that's the first thing that I did. And one of the things that I realized, and I was able to buy the plane after I went bankrupt, because when I was making a lot of money before I went bankrupt, I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. I was just like working to make money, to become rich, to become successful. So I wasn't really enjoying the journey. Then afterwards, I realized that I needed to enjoy the journey. And when I realized that, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to take care of all my childhood dreams. And it goes back into that big one, into like buying my Lamborghini, having the plane, being a pilot, and all those things.
Yeah, one of the things that you talk about, I love this. Winners find a way. The reason we named that show is because I love a quote in the Four Disciplines of Execution, by McChesney and Covey, and it says winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. I
Yes.
mean, you're losing at 19 years old. You get arrested, and you're like, crap, man. Like, this isn't good. Like, I got to change my friend set, right? And I got to do something different. So now you go through a bankruptcy as a guy who's got a degree in business, construction management from Florida International, great school, and you go bankrupt after making a lot of money. Like,
Yes.
walk me through a couple of these down moments, and you're like, wow. I mean, bankruptcy is usually the epitome of losing. That's a KPI that I'm losing. I got to do something different, right?
Yeah.
How do you spin up out of that and move forward? And by the way, is your wife along for this ride yet, or not? You hadn't
No,
met her
no,
yet.
no. I was still single. I was still single
Okay.
at
Okay.
that
Good.
time.
Okay.
I mean, it's like achieving this success so fast, because I left the Marine Corps at 22. I made over $20 million in the next 4 years. So by 26, I was like had over $20 million worth of assets, and then all of a sudden, from night to day, boom, you lose everything. Like everything starts crumbling down, and then the first thing that comes into you is you get into your mind and you start going, what a loser, what a failure. I'm never gonna amount to anything. Then you start like retracing like all these people that have put you down in your life that you were never going to amount to be anything. And those are the things that started to sink in. Okay, I was very fortunate enough to go to an event, and it was called the Millionaire Mind Intensive. And I realized that we have to work on ourselves. That's when I really understood that if we're not working on our self-development, if we're not working on our mindset, if we're not working on ourselves and getting mentors, we're never going to get to where we want to get faster, and we're always going to start falling down, because there's things that are always going to bring us back and are going to pull us down. And to me, it was that I was telling myself that I was never going to be successful again. And right after coming down from that 3-day event, I came back with a new mindset, a new attitude, and I opened up myself for opportunities. And sure enough, within a month, I was in a brand new business, and we took that business again to multi-million dollars, having stores throughout the United States, to having a franchise model created, and end up exiting that company and being back on the top again in a couple of years.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, first of all, you created the 22 million through real estate, through acquisition, development, that side, from what you learned, right?
Yes.
So, all legal. This is a legal way to make your money. Was the downfall like the '09 crash, or where were you at? What was
the '07 crash? It was the 2007 crash. It was extremely overextended, and because that's how fast I wanted to be successful. That's how fast I wanted to grow. So at times we don't understand that over leverage is going to kill you on the long run.
Yeah. There's good debt and bad debt, right? And I think that's a good one for the folks. I mean, that's a great lesson, man. And so, man, I mean, tell me a little bit about, you do a bankruptcy. You're going to do things a little different coming out, and you've got a challenge with personal credit because you got a 7-year hit on your own personal credit, right? So, did you meet your wife in that time?
No, I met her just before selling my first company. Yeah, like about a year or 2 years before selling the company.
Okay. So she didn't come in going, "Oh, hey, listen, I don't have a credit card. I do got a couple $1 million in a company, but I don't own a credit card."
I still didn't have a credit card, which is funny because sometimes we become as humans extremists. So we go from one extreme to the next extreme. So right after losing everything, going bankrupt, I was so afraid of debt that I decided that my next company was going to be all cash. So we grew this company, and we had no debt. Everything was cash. I was able to buy my house, my cars, everything cash. But sure enough, cash only goes so far until you're at that position that if you want to continue growing, you need to go and ask for debt again. And just like you said, a good friend of mine taught me, and he's like, "Edwin, it's okay to have debt." Like, he really sat down and talked to me and mentored me of how to have the right debt, how to leverage the right way, and not be over leveraged again. Because I was really afraid of having debt and had that happening, what happened to me back in 2007 again.
Yeah, I so respect that. And Dave Ramsey, like, no debt ever, right? And some you get these extremes in that too. Like, there's hey, you're never gonna do it, and you swing the other way going, hey, everything's on debt. I got leverage and all crazy. And so I've seen both myself as well. And so let's talk a little bit about, I mean, today where Edwin and I are recording this as a Marine, we're coming up and around that 9/11 date, man. That's a big date in America for being in the military. That means a lot to people, and there's still ramifications of that. You got a lot of firefighters dying from cancer that were involved. I think there's now 400 like confirmed deaths attached to cancerous activity that came out of being on site, working in that environment for months, doing cleanup and all the challenges of that. But it was a dark day in the U.S. At the same time. One of the things that I counted, as a faithful guy like yourself, man, what a blessing is I watched everybody really ground to a halt. And I mean, you never saw our churches fuller then 9:15, 9:20, 9:30. Like, listen, man, like everyone got real to what's important and got some foundational, right to the heart, what's important for their families, for our environment, for our country. And there's a lot of unity around that. Man, and I just feel like, hey, now we're what, 23 years later, and we've drifted, right? We've drifted away from what we know to be good and right.
Yeah.
What'd you learn in the Marines and in your business to, like, man, how do we catch that drift?
Yeah, I think the biggest one in there is we have to adapt and overcome. There's always going to be challenges in life. There's always going to be challenges in business. And I think the best thing that we could ever do is just adapt and overcome, because life is not perfect. Businesses are not perfect. And with learning to adapt and overcome, I think to me what really helped me on that was that I learned that in business that we can make a lot of money when the economy is great or when we go into a recession, because I did make a lot of money during a recession. So it's just looking at opportunities and then adapting and overcoming to whatever situations we have around us.
Yeah. By the way, a Marine mantra, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about, because you are an expert scaling up mentorship. You have a business doing that. You got a passion for helping businesses. You've done this now 3-4 times now, for your
Yes.
own companies. And let's start with what holds people back in scaling up, because one of the things we've already talked about is money, right? Like, I either don't have enough cash, I don't have leverage, I don't want to use debt. I want to debt it all away. I don't want to use any cash. We got a lot of ideas of and reasons why we can't go forward, why we can't grow. Walk
Yes.
me through a little bit of some things that are holding people back from from scaling up their organization and really growing it.
I think the first one is the mindset, and I always
Yeah.
and I say from personal experience. I think we're brought up of having a certain mindset level, like a ceiling, meaning that my mindset is worth only $20 million, and in order for me to get to $100 million, I need to have $100 million mindset. And it's not just saying, oh, I want to be, get to $100 million. Is how do we get there? How do we change that mindset, that shift? And the reason that we talked about that and having the right mindset, the millionaire mindset, is because if we're afraid of spending and investing $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, how we're going to get to the million, 10 million, $100 million? And we have to go through that process. That you know when people talk to us about this is going to be $10,000. $10,000 doesn't mean anything to me. Like nowadays, when somebody tells me, "Oh, this is going to be $10 million," 10 million, okay, it's only 10 million. We start looking at that. So when we start looking at things that way, to me, I really think is the mindset is already there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good, the language matters, right? When you start talking to people and you hear someone go, "Hey, that's only 10 million." In my organization, I'm like, I specifically remember when I own a shipping company, and it's capitally intensive, right, Edwin? And so, like, vessels go down and you've got engineers that come on board and mechanics, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta fix this engine on board the ship or the vessel." And and I remember an engineer calling me and go, "Hey, good news. It's only $145,000." And I'm like, "Hey, first of all, don't ever put an only in front of that site." Like, I need you to mindset, like, we need to be efficient. That's more than you make. Like let's be smart about this, right? And and I think, now you've got someone who's going, "Hey, that's only 10 million." And you're like, dang, like, where is his mindset? And that's powerful, right?
Yes, it is. And look, and at the beginning, like even for me, like or with some of my business partners, when we started talking about like, and I'll go back into the jewelry business. When I got into the jewelry business, like, oh, we have to do marketing and we need to spend like at least 20,000 a month. And he's like, 20,000. I was like, no, I could do this for like 5,000, and I'll do this, and we need to do this because this was going to get us to where we want to get to. And it has to do with a mindset that you cannot be afraid of spending. You have to look at money as a vehicle to get you to where you want to get to, not idolize money, like saying, oh, I can't spend this because it's never going to go anywhere. The more you spend, the more you make. I think it's really true when people say that you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah, I also want to bounce back a little bit to that mindset back when you went to bankruptcy, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm exactly what they said. I'm never going to amount to anything. I haven't done anything right. Woe is me, right? Like that's a mindset that we can climb into too, or the imposter syndrome. Like, well, everyone's successful except me. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
I mean, my firm's 22 million, but you know, Hector over here, or Jimmy's doing 40 million, or Teresa's got a better business and she's got 60. Like that imposter syndrome is always part of a mindset shift. That's an issue for me personally. I feel it, and I think other people, I've seen it. I put it on one thing, right? I'd put that mindset in a comparison game that everybody needs to stay away from. How do you see that?
Oh no, definitely. We have to do that. We cannot compare ourselves to other. Go speak on stages. Last time I was just speaking to 1,000 in front of 1,000 people not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple of people, keynote speakers that were there. That for 1 second I kind of like starting comparing myself, like, oh, I'm not doing what they're doing, so why am I able to be on this stage? But then you got to realize that it doesn't matter where you are. You are who you are, and you cannot compare yourself to other people. The other ones were older than me, so they had more experience. The other ones were in different industries, so of course there's different industries that let you scale a lot faster. So you got to stick to where you are and who you are, and not compare yourself to others. But what that gave me more fuel into my fire to continue growing and continue scaling.
Yeah, love it. Okay, mindset number one. What's number two that you think holds a lot of people back from scaling up?
Network, the right network. I think it's always definitely to be surrounded by the right network. And I like to put this life perspective as an example, that I always said that I wanted to retire when I have like my 45-foot yacht, and that was it. That was going to be like my dream boat. I'm going to retire. That's what I want. And sure enough, I was lucky enough, fortunate enough to be able to buy a 50-foot yacht and enjoy that. And then one day I go into a NEO members yacht, Mark Moses, the one from Make Big Happen, and he
Yep.
has an 85-foot yacht. And I'm like, oh my God, it's time to level up. So it's when you're surrounded like by that network, people that are always like not push you to get higher, but you look at them that they have accomplished more than you. You want to continue growing because you're happy for what they did, and you realize that you're not going to change, and you're always going to be this nice, good person, giving person, and help others. That's the type of person you are, right? So the more money that you have, the more that you can help others. So it's like it pushes you to continue growing, having the right network. If you're surrounded by people that don't want to grow, that don't want to do anything, that always hold you back, then you're not going to grow, because that's your network. And it's very important what people say. Your network is your net worth.
Yeah, your network is your net worth. Great statement. And you've been an EO member for quite some time. Most people maybe have not heard of Entrepreneurs Organization. EO is, you have to have $1 million business, top line revenue to even get in and be considered a member. So what's rare air in North America, Edwin, I can't speak for South America or Central America, is that in North America, there's only 3.5% of all businesses make $1 million. This isn't everybody. This
Yeah.
is this is the top of the tree, and it's a big tree, right? Like, there's a big tree, and everyone looks up at the top of that tree and goes, "Wait a minute, you want me to climb to the top? I'm kind of scared of heights. There's not that many branches. I don't know if there's stuff to hold on to." And
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're gonna go up into rare air, and you got to learn, like, this is the few, the proud, man. I mean, this is kind of the Marines, right? The few, the
Yes, it
proud
is.
are at 3.5%. So that all of a sudden you get into that network of 18,000 members worldwide. That's a powerful network of top 3%ers.
Yes.
And so, man, I love that value. Okay, number three is what?
It's having the right, and I think, to me, after speaking so many stages and talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things that I notice is that the basics, right? A lot of entrepreneurs don't have the basics. A lot of business owners don't have the basics. And when we talk about the basics, I'm talking about like very basic. Having a business plan. A lot of people don't have a business plan. So when you don't know, and I always love this quote: if you don't know where you're going, you will eventually get there. Because we're getting to business and we'll eventually get to where we're going to get to, but we don't know where exactly because we have no plan. So having that business plan, that strategic plan where, hey, in 1 year I want to be here, in 3 years I want to be here, in 5 years I'm going to be here, and making sure that everybody understands that, we share that with our family, our friends, our team members, our employees, our customers, that's what's going to gets us there a lot faster, because it's out on the open, everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I think being a sports guy, right? A lot of the times it always comes back to the fundamentals, right? Like, hey, do we have we mastered the fundamentals, the
Yes.
basics? And this is a challenge right now in American sport, is that we're locked in on the Sports Center and ESPN and all the highlight shows, and everybody loves to show you a highlight, but there's a lot of kids that are really talented but really poor at the fundamentals. And it's showing up in a lot of different ways in organizations, on teams. And man, I always look at those basics, those fundamentals. And you're a developer and a builder, right?
Yes.
That's the foundation. So if we don't have the fundamentals and the basics right, how do we build up? What are we going to put on it? We're going to be able to put a second floor, maybe. 40 floors? Well, no chance. This thing's going to collapse. We got a terrible foundation, right? And I think people are trying to build up and scale up on a poor foundation a lot of times.
And that's what happens 90% of the time. I see that. And I love the example that you put, because I use the same example, but to me it's more like you can't even build a one story if you don't have the right foundation, because it's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. And it's having those right pillars since the beginning, which again, those pillars become mindset, becomes process, systems in place, and knowing where you want to go.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk a little bit. Is there more? Is there more to like some of the things that are holding scaling back? Those are three biggies.
Yeah, and I think the last one that we could throw in there, it's a big one that I think to me is the biggest excuse. And I call it the biggest excuse because it's money. Everybody talks about, I don't have money to start a business. I don't have money to scale a business. I need money. And if I look at my life story, if I look back at my life story, my first two major companies, I didn't have money. I left the Marine Corps in debt. I was bankrupt. So I didn't have any money, but I started some multi-million-dollar companies without any capital. So the one thing that I always will tell you is that, you don't have to have money to start or scale a company, but money is needed.
Yeah, that's good. And positioning for that money, right? If you've got a good idea, good concept, good people, money will follow, right? The people
Yes.
want to be involved in that space. And if you don't, and you don't want to offer anything, like, hey, I'd love to get some investment from you, Edwin. You don't have a business plan. You don't have any foundations, Trent. Why would I invest in someone without any of the fundamentals?
Exactly.
Go get your fundamentals right before you come back here asking me for money. So I love that. Okay, now, you and I have the luxury of knowing some really successful people with some high level, side hustles, right? It's pretty crazy.
Yes.
Now, I was a side hustle guy since I was 10, right? I was a newspaper delivery guy, selling
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
I mean, you know, I was the king of side hustle, right? And I probably still am. I still own, three brands right now. Probably need a little more focus actually. But at the end of the day, a lot of people want to get started. Like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, and side hustle is not a bad way to go. Do your stuff, work hard in the evenings, work hard on the weekends, sacrifice some things for a short time. And you don't want to sacrifice your family time, but you're willing to do that for a short time and put some time on that. When does a side hustle? When do we jump? And let's talk a little bit about side hustles, and let's talk about, like, at what point do you think you might jump and say, like, listen, I think I can leave my day job and really put my focus here.
Yeah. And I think on that one, we have to be very strategic about how we do things, right? There's some people that I mentor that they left their day job to go into the side hustle when it overseeded their income or it equaled their income. But there's another one that I just had a conversation with this week, and he was making $250,000 a year working for a company, and he started a tech company, but he hasn't launched yet. But he just recently, like about 6 months ago, he decided to quit because he realized that side hustle was a passion, and he really believed in that. And it wasn't, and the biggest thing wasn't that he believed in that, is that he really started to believe in himself and what he's capable of doing it. So I think the moment that we need to leave that day job so we could fulfill our vision in our side hustle vision is the moment that we believe in ourselves, that we're capable of taking and becoming that making that vision a reality, or maybe continue growing that side hustle that we already proved the concept. Because a lot of times, one of the things that I always tell people is that we have to do a proof of concept. And if that business works, then yeah, whatever effort you put into it is going to multiply. So if I'm only putting like 1 hour a week, that's as much as I'm going to get out of it. If I'm putting 40 hours a week, that's what I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah, I do love that. As I talk about a lot of people have a hard, staunch rule on this, and I would probably side on what you said first, which is, this is where you want to be. You don't want to be in your day job, doesn't have a passion, not giving you energy. You're stuck. But I hear a lot of people say, hey, listen, when you are making an earning on your side hustle that you've been making, that would replace your salary, hey, it's a decent time to make your jump.
Yes.
Um, and I like the idea of someone making, 250, 350,000, going, hey, I planned for this. I'm positioning my family. So for the last year, I have set aside 25% of my salary every month to nest egg us, to build me out some runway so I can really go after my IT passion, my passion to get better tires on cars. I don't care what your passion is, right?
Yes.
But positioning so you don't get stuck, because it's a bad day when you don't have proof of concept and you're out of money.
Yes. Definitely a bad day. And again, to me, and this happened when I went bankrupt. That and as a moment that that I thought about going out and getting a job, but then for a minute I'm like, you know what? I'd rather do things on my own and maybe make $1 a day than go somebody tell me what I'm worth. And but nowadays I look at that, and and to me I think that having a job is not bad, because you're getting paid to learn a skill that you could eventually in the future capitalize on. And that happened to one of my other students, that he was an engineer and he was working for a firm, and he became very good at what he was doing. That the moment that he decided to go out on his own and do whatever things he wanted to do, he just became an advisor to them and a consultant, and he kept getting paid not as an employee but as a consultant to that company that he worked for 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know how many times, Edwin, in our firm, we've seen people with a very similar story. I'll bet it's more than on one hand I can count. And especially in the law, lawyers, engineers, specialty services, even medical, right? And went on their own, had good relationships in their business, in their company as an employee, and said, hey, listen, I really want to do this. Transparency, this is what I'm going for. I love working here. And they're like, well, we love having you here, Edwin. So, I know we pay you $100,000 a year, but what if we gave you a consulting contract for 150? You're like, oh yeah, we can do that. Like,
Right.
why wouldn't we do that? And now, by the way, 120 W-2 and 150, where I get to control taxation on that money, is a very different deal, right? That's like literally not a 50% raise. That's like a 90% raise, because you get to control taxation on that. And I don't know if folks that coming out of that W-2 always understand that.
Yes. No, and I think, to me, with that being said, at the same time, is you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that the world is small. So that's why it's very important that we always leave those relationships open when we walk away from those jobs, because you never know when you're going to need those connections, when you're going to need those people.
Well, I think the other side of this too is, man, life is short, right? I mean, the energy it takes to have bad relationships. I mean, there's a lot. I don't know if you've ever seen a bridge burn, but it's a lot of bad energy, man. Like, this is not a good sight, right?
Right.
And it's a negative thing. We saw it here in the United States when the ship hit the bridge, right? And now all of a sudden Baltimore has a massive logistical issue for a lot of trucks and a lot of people moving in and out of products, especially international products, because that's a major hub right there. And
Yeah.
and and one bridge goes down, and man, there's a whole shift in energy in that city, in that town. Why, as an individual, would you want negative relationships to flood your life, to flood like this rear view mirror, looking over your shoulder. Are they coming for me? Like, have I ticked somebody off that they're gonna gun after me like now? Like, there are issues in people's lives, and man, you don't want that energy. It's not
No,
worth it.
not at all. Not at all. I understand.
So let's talk about you know, you jump in, you talked about network. If you know, I think these are pretty challenging times right now, especially in the United States. Um, the economic conditions are coming out that is a little bit more dire than they've laid out than they let out to be, right?
Yes.
Um, Certainly now when people start talking about the fact that in 2001 we had a lifestyle, and I'm sorry, 21, and 2024 the average American needs $30,000 per household to maintain that lifestyle. Like, I mean, we have employees. Like, employees don't get raises of $30,000 in 3 years most of the time. There may be 1% who can move at clips like that, but most employees can't move at that. So people are challenged. People are challenged in this environment. If you were talking to someone who's challenged that environment right now, Edwin, what would you say is critical to getting out of that?
Number one is making sure. I always say that, and the reason it happens and it's happening is because of all these things that we have done since COVID happened, that everybody started spending more money, everybody started being more frugal with everything else. And to me, I think we always have to live below our means and save up for rainy days, live below our means. And that's one thing that has helped me out, that um, when I went bankrupt, I was living above my means and I was super overextended. That nowadays, that I live below my means and I try to save for a rainy day. And if I don't have to work if I cannot work for a whole year, then I'm okay because I have enough savings that is going to last me that long time. But at the same time, it's figuring out, as the economy keeps going up and as everything gets more expensive, are we raising our prices into everything else that we're doing, into the businesses, the services that we're providing to people? Because that's one of the things that I noticed some entrepreneurs are not doing. They're not going back and they're not raising their prices into the products or their services that they're doing because they're afraid they're going to lose the customers.
Yeah.
But if they're providing good value, if they're providing good services, if they're providing good products, people are willing to pay that if they really value you. And to me, I'd rather lose a customer and I'd rather lose a customer instead of losing money, and I'd rather gain a good customer that values me for what I'm providing to them.
I love that. Yeah, I call that in my line of speaking is price high and justify, right? Like, hey, I'm going to price high, and this is massive value. I will justify exactly the value and the ROI you're going to get on that spend. This is going to be a massive thing when someone, as you know, scales up, takes a company worth $1 million of EBITDA, works with someone like our firms, and all of a sudden you've got a $5 million EBITDA company. I'm like, hey, listen, like, this is going to give you a massive value on a sale. Like, you're going to get 4x, and 4x of 1 was 4, and 4x of 5 is 20. Like,
Yes.
last time I looked, you just gained a $16 million valuation, and that's going to be life changing, generation changing for your family. So what Edwin Carrion does is he does that. He does it in construction, he does it in development, he does it in mentoring and helping companies. Edwin, you've been giving a lot to a lot of people. Thankful for all that you've been out there doing. A fellow EO member, building out his network, working on himself. I love to hear that, man. We're all trying to get better out here, and never stop learning.
Oh no, thank you, and thank you. I really appreciate you for having me here. And Trent, look, I want to do something special for your audience since everybody stayed here until the end of the episode. So one of the things that I want to share with you is I'm going to share something that you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet, and it's something that I only give to my paying clients, and it's what is called my business super stack. And what that's going to do is going to help you accelerate your growth to success into whatever business you have or you're growing or you're starting. And in order for you to do that, just go into my social media, send me a message, podcast 24 or leading winning teams. And I know it came from the podcast, and I'll send it to you.
That's awesome. And you can send that to at Edwin Carrion 78 on your social.
Yes, at
All
Edwin
right,
Carrion.
you heard it here. Hit him up, man. You get the super stack from Edwin Carrion. He's helped a lot of business. He's done it on his own. A fabulous show on Winners Find a Way. You can find us every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Can't wait to see you next time on the Winners Find a Way. Our podcast is absolutely tracking. We have increased 100% since the book was released on August 20th on leading winning teams. So thankful for our audience that's here. We hope you tune in. We bring the top 1%. You can find all the shows, all the 140 shows on the Leadershipity YouTube channel, video review there, and on all your major podcast networks. To Edwin Carrion and Trent Clark, winners find a way.